Houston is about to decide the future of one of its most iconic buildings, and demolition is not off the table. The Astrodome was once called the eighth wonder of the world. It was the first domed stadium ever built, with an expansive column-free roof, a massive air conditioning system, and a playing surface so experimental it led to the invention of AstroTurf. But today, it sits empty, sealed off, and costing taxpayers money just to keep the lights off. Now, after more than a decade of debate, Houston has a billion-dollar plan to save it. One that would completely reimagine the dome while preserving what made it an engineering icon in the first place. Today, Buildcorp is on the ground in NRG Park, where we'll take a look at how the Astrodome was built, why it's been so difficult to reuse, and whether its most ambitious reinvention yet actually makes sense. The Astrodome story began in 1952 with Roy Hofheinz, who sought to bring Major League Baseball to Houston, but indoors, where fans and players could escape the punishing summer heat and sudden Gulf Coast storms. After many years of lobbying, funding efforts, and planning, the project broke ground in 1963. By the time it opened 2 years later, the dome had cost around $35 million, or about $370 million today. The stadium spans 712 feet in diameter and reaches a height of 208 feet from the playing surface, which sits 25 feet below grade. In total, the dome covers more than 9 acres and encloses nearly 30 million cubic feet of space. Its roof is a lamella truss system, a diamond pattern network of steel members forming a self-supporting shell without interior columns. This allowed for a clear span of 642 feet across the entire playing field, unprecedented for a stadium at the time. The roof structure alone required over 2,000 tons of steel for the framing, plus a 376-ton tension ring that resisted outward thrust. Because of the building's sheer size and structural complexity, the design team employed an iterative analytical approach. Scale model wind tests were performed by McDonnell Aircraft to determine uplift and lateral loads caused by hurricane force winds. The dome was ultimately designed to withstand sustained winds of 135 miles per hour and gusts of up to 165. The Astrodome also broke ground in mechanical systems. The climate control system featured 4 centrifugal chillers with a combined capacity of 6,000 tons, capable of circulating 2 million cubic feet of air per minute. Thermostats were controlled via radio signal, and the stadium was designed for full automation. Air conditioning ran continuously to prevent the buildup of heat and humidity in the sealed structure. The stadium was designed to host both baseball and football, with 2 large field-level seating sections able to rotate 35 degrees to reorient for each sport. Up to 66,000 spectators could be accommodated across 6 tiers, each with direct access to concessions and restrooms. After the turf began dying shortly after the stadium opened, the Astros replaced it in 1966 with chemgrass, soon rebranded as AstroTurf. Although it's grown to have a pretty rough reputation in recent years, especially with its strong correlation to athlete injuries, the application marked the first use of synthetic turf in a major sports venue and led to decades of similar installations in stadiums across the US. The scoreboard was another leap forward. The Astrolight cost $2.1 million and spanned 475 feet in width. It was the first to feature animated graphics and visual effects, combining incandescent lights and relays to show stats, replays, and animations, far ahead of its time. After 34 years as a multi-use venue, hosting the Houston Astros, Oilers, Rockets, the annual livestock show and rodeo, and countless concerts, conventions, and emergency shelters, the Astrodome's active life effectively ended in 2009. The adjacent NRG Stadium, completed in 2002 with modern seating, retractable roof options, and expanded hospitality suites, became the primary venue for major events, drawing crowds with lower operating costs and contemporary amenities. Since 2009, the dome has functioned largely as a storage facility for NRG Park's staging equipment and vehicles. Structurally, the dome remains fundamentally sound. Periodic inspections conducted by Harris County confirmed that the lamella roof shows no signs of structural fatigue or critical corrosion, thanks in part to a $105 million roof remediation project completed in 2018. Nonetheless, decades without climate-controlled occupancy have allowed interior finishes, seating risers, concession stands, and mechanical rooms to deteriorate. Economically, the Astrodome presents both an opportunity and burden. It sits on 9.6 acres of prime real estate adjacent to major thoroughfares, a light rail station, and the modern NRG Stadium complex. Meanwhile, Harris County spends roughly $2.3 million annually on minimal utilities, security patrols, and structural inspections, without generating offsetting revenue. The dome's status as a Texas State Antiquities Landmark, granted in 2018, attempts to prohibit demolition, but does not guarantee public funding for restoration. As a result, the site embodies a classic adaptive reuse dilemma: high preservation value paired with substantial rehab costs, set within an urban context that demands productive land use. But the question remains, what now? Houston stakeholders have honed in on 3 primary pathways for the Astrodome's future, each option involving complex trade-offs among capital costs, operational revenue, community impact, and preservation requirements. In November 2024, the Astrodome Conservancy in Gensler, Houston released Vision Astrodome, a $1 billion redevelopment proposal that preserves the dome's iconic structure while transforming its interior into 4 distinct components. At the center is a 10,000-seat multipurpose arena, designed to host mid-scale sports, concerts, and community events. To the north and south, 2 mixed-use pavilions will provide 200,000 square feet of office, retail, and restaurant space, while the East Pavilion would house a 150-room boutique hotel. All volumes would connect via an elevated skywalk boulevard, a linear pedestrian route inspired by the High Line, offering direct access to the Metro Rail and integrating natural light, solar panels, and public viewing areas. The project will be funded through $200 million in preservation tax credits, $400 million in private investment and sponsorships, and another $400 million from philanthropic and municipal sources. Construction will be scheduled to begin in 2028 and conclude by 2031, aiming to deliver a self-sustaining venue that preserves Houston's architectural legacy while activating the long-dormant site. A lower-cost alternative focuses on limited interior rehab to host periodic events, like rodeos, motorsport exhibitions, trade shows, and concerts, while leaving large portions of the bowl empty. Estimated capital expenditures of $200 million would restore seating risers, replace flooring, and install modular HVAC and lighting systems suitable for seasonal activation. Revenue projections are modest, approximately $5 million per year, but this approach carries lower financial risk and could leverage event promoters already contracted at Energy Park. It would also require fewer historic preservation concessions, as the dome's primary structure would remain untouched. A third option proposes converting the dome into an educational and innovation campus in partnership with institutions like the University of Houston and Texas A&M. The plan envisions fit-out costs of $150 million to create structural engineering labs, material testing facilities, and an incubator for sustainable urban design startups. Revenue streams would derive from long-term academic leases, grant funding, and corporate R&D partnerships, though direct cash flow returns would be limited compared to commercial uses. Harris County officials have emphasized that any public investment beyond preservation grants must prioritize the operational sustainability of the adjacent NRG Stadium. Preservation agencies require retention of defining features, specifically the lamella roof and exterior facade. And although I didn't mention too much about it, demolition is still a possibility. It almost happened back in 2013. While it will be difficult at this point, considering its status as a Texas landmark, it could be done for around $30 to $40 million. Doing this would require approval from the Texas Historical Commission, who would likely need to know that all reuse options have been exhausted and determined unsuccessful. Public surveys indicate overwhelming support, around 95% for reuse over demolition, yet less than half of respondents endorse significant taxpayer subsidies beyond existing preservation grants. The Astrodome is one of the most iconic engineering feats of the 20th century, a structure that redefined what a stadium could be. Now, after years of dormancy, its future hinges on whether Houston can reimagine it with the same ambition that built it, balancing preservation, purpose, and cost, to give this engineering landmark a new chapter. At Buildcore, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects and topics across this great country, and with your help, the channel has grown to over 45,000 subscribers and reached over 10 million people. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.